the last video, I discussed the nerve supply of different organs and area of the head neck region. Now, I will tell you some of the important arteries in our body which are having different anatomical parts. And what are the parts and what are the arteries I am telling you. Let us discuss one by one. One of them is the subclavian artery. You know, subclavian artery is a branch from the arch of the aorta on the left side, and the right subclavian artery is a branch from the brachiocephalic trunk. Whatever may be the source of origin, either arch of aorta or brachiocephalic trunk, the subclavian artery having three parts. What are the three parts? The first part, it starts from its origin up to the medial border of the scalenus anterior muscle. Then the artery passes deep to or posterior to the scalenus anterior muscle. So this part is the second part. Then the muscle emerges from the lateral border of the scalenus anterior muscle. So the third part starts from the lateral border of scalenus anterior up to the outer border of the first rib. So these are the three parts of subclavian artery, and these three parts is mainly due to the intervening scalenus anterior muscle, which divides its proximal part, first part, then deep to it, second part, and distal part is the third part. Next artery is the axillary artery. Axillary artery is a continuation of subclavian artery, and you know the subclavian artery, its third part, it extends up to the outer border of the first rib. So the first part of axillary artery will start from the outer border of the first rib, then up to the upper border of the pectoralis minor. It is the first part. Then the axillary artery passes deep to the pectoralis minor muscle. So this part, which is deep to the pectoralis minor, is the second part. Then the artery from the lower border of pectoralis minor up to the lower border of teres major, that part is the third part. So altogether there are three parts of axillary artery. First part proximal to the pectoralis minor, second part deep to pectoralis minor, third part distal to pectoralis minor up to the lower border of teres major. Next to axillary artery is the vertebral artery. You know, vertebral artery is one of the branches of the subclavian artery, and the artery from its origin, it runs towards the foramen transversarium of C6 vertebra or 6 cervical vertebra. Then it ascends upwards through the foramen transversarium of C5, C4, C3, C2 and up to C1. But it never goes downwards towards the 7th cervical vertebra. So from its origin up to the foramen transversarium of 6th cervical vertebra is the first part. Then from the foramen transversarium of 6th cervical vertebra up to the foramen transversarium of 1st cervical vertebra is the second part. This part is accompanied by the vertebral vein and the sympathetic nerve plexus around the artery. From the foramen transversarium of 1st cervical vertebra up to the foramen magnum of the occipital bone is the third part. And this third part, it runs over the suboccipital triangle. From the foramen magnum of the base of the skull, it enters into the cranial cavity. The fourth part extends from the foramen magnum up to the lower border of the pons, where it joins with the vertebral artery of the opposite side to form the basilar artery at the lower border of the pons. Then the basilar artery, it ascends upwards in front of the pons. So up to lower border is the fourth part. So first part from origin to foramen transversarium of C6 vertebra, second part from foramen transversarium of 6th cervical vertebra to foramen transversarium of 1st cervical vertebra, third part from foramen transversarium of 1st cervical vertebra up to foramen magnum, and fourth part from foramen magnum up to the lower border of pons, where it joins with the fellow of the opposite side to form the basilar artery. Next to vertebral artery is the lingual artery. Another important artery of the head neck region is the lingual artery, which is a branch from the external carotid artery in the neck. From its origin, it passes toward the hyoglossus muscle. So up to the hyoglossus, that is posterior border of the hyoglossus, it is the first part. Then deep to the hyoglossus is the second part, and beyond the hyoglossus, or rather anterior border of the hyoglossus up to the tip of the tongue is the third part. So lingual artery also having three parts, and here the muscle is the hyoglossus. So more or less in many of the arteries, the parts of the different arteries are due to the intervening muscle. Next to the lingual artery, next artery is the maxillary artery. You know, the maxillary artery is one of the terminal division of external carotid artery. This artery, from its origin, that is from the termination of the external carotid artery up to the lower border of the lower head of lateral pterygoid muscle, is the first part. Then it passes deep to the lower head of the lateral pterygoid, and it passes in between the two heads of pterygoid muscle, lateral pterygoid muscle, and this part is the called pterygoid part. After that, it enters into the pterygopalatine fossa, and it gives up so many branches. The third part is also called the pterygopalatine part. So first part is the mandibular part up to the lower border of lower head of lateral pterygoid. Second part is the pterygoid part, which runs between the two heads of lateral pterygoid. And third part is the pterygopalatine part, which runs through the pterygomaxillary fissure into the pterygopalatine fossa, and where it gives up so many branches. That part is the pterygopalatine part or third part. Next artery is the internal carotid artery, and you know the common carotid artery at the upper border of the lamina of thyroid cartilage. It divides into terminal two branches. One is internal carotid and another one is external carotid. The internal carotid in the neck, it runs upwards vertically and enters into a foramen which is present on the inferior surface of the petrous part of temporal bone. So up to this carotid opening of the petrous part of temporal bone is the cervical part or part in the neck, but this part having no branches in the neck. So cervical part, no branches. Then from the opening on the under surface of the petrous part of temporal bone, the artery enters into the petrous part, and within the petrous part it passes through a canal and comes out through another opening at the apex of the petrous bone. So that part from the opening on the undersurface up to the opening at the apex is called the petrous part, but this part having few branches. From the apex of the petrous part of temporal bone near the foramen lacerum, this artery, it runs forward and enters into the cavernous sinus. So within the cavernous sinus, this artery also gives some branches, and this part is called the cavernous part or third part. And next part, when the artery, it leaves the cavernous sinus through its meningeal roof, it becomes the fourth part or called the cerebral part, because this part, it gives up two important terminal branches. One is the anterior cerebral and another one is the middle cerebral. Posterior cerebral artery is not a branch from the internal carotid artery. Posterior cerebral artery is a branch from the basilar artery, which is formed again by the two vertebral arteries. So altogether, the internal carotid artery is having four parts: cervical part or first part without any branch, second part or called petrous part within the petrous bone, third part is the cavernous part within the cavernous sinus, and fourth part is the intercranial part or cerebral part having two terminal branches, anterior cerebral and middle cerebral. So all are the few important arteries in the body which are having different anatomical parts, and what are the parts I told you, and these are commonly asked in different parts of the oral and practical examination. So you be ready for the different parts and also the different nerve supply of the different muscles I told you in the previous video. So these are some important questions may be asked. So thank you very much for today.